Hello, and welcome to episode 57 of the What If South is Up podcast, where we dive into the arts of world building and storytelling with a what if lens. Together, we explore, dissect, and expand the speculative and fantasy worlds of our own making. Blending a bit of wisdom and a dash of whimsy, we aim to spark creativity for ourselves and for you. Get ready to reimagine and dig deeper as we journey from what if to what's possible. In other words, how to wing it like an author. My name is Derek Hall. I'm the creator of the world of Ketra, and a few other things at this point, but that is not particularly important. With me today is my ever lovely co-host, Christina Extina Lefebvre.
And I am the maker-upper of a world called Cobb, a magical parallel Earth where colonization never happened in the Americas. I'm still an aspiring author, yet unpublished, but I love creating worlds, world building, feeling the challenge of it.
It's absolutely a challenge. And to kick things off, before we see which what if question Chance brings up, let's do a potion check. What are you drinking today, Christina?
Iced tea, hard, apparently from a place called Arizona.
Yes.
Yeah. It's sweet. It's good. It's cheap.
For sure.
What are you drinking?
I have a large and steaming cup of calf. Roasted beans ground and brewed with hot water mixed with milk and molasses sand.
Molasses sand, so brown
Yes.
sugar. Yes. Good job. And I'm assuming it's the milk of a cow.
No, why would you assume anything?
Well, you're right. This could be otherworldly. You could like goat milk. I don't know. In Ketra, do they like goat milk or cow milk or no milk?
I really like goat milk, but I don't have access to a goat at the moment, so. But
Okay.
I haven't put much thought into the milk drinking habits of Ketrans, so I couldn't answer that. But for me, it is of the bovine mammary variety.
There you go.
But with elixirs in hand, let's talk worldsmithing. What breakthroughs, techniques, and tips have you found, Christina?
Actually, I was listening to an episode of Writing Excuses, season 20, episode 15, and they're talking about third-person omniscient.
Oh, that one's so hard to do.
Yes, it is, but that being said, this is a fascinating episode because I didn't realize there were so many ways to do it. And one of the things they said is that, when we text each other, or we do like social media posts and stuff like that. Oh, no, never mind. That was second person. But no, the omniscient. There were just so many different ways of doing it. It was so interesting. And I don't know. I just learned a lot from that. Maybe helping me decide when I want to do omniscient and when I want to do third person.
Mm-hmm.
But so the question was, what breakthroughs or techniques or tips have sparked new life into your world building? And I am going to use omniscient in specific places in my story. So I found that really mind blowing. Just that, I can do it. I can do it here. And it won't take the people out of the story, hopefully. But there you go.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you? Anything developed, breakthrough'd, techniqued? Anything for you?
No, nothing at all. Lots of challenges, but what part of writing isn't a challenge? Let's be honest.
Let's be
That's
honest.
probably part of why we do it. We like being challenged. But I'm getting back into book 3, doing some writing there and trying to get it done. I'm trying, I promise. I've actually had a few people bugging me lately. Where's book 3?
Really? That's awesome.
But I'm working on it and I'm making reasonable progress, but I'm still trying to connect dots. Like, I have landmarks in my plot and I've got to figure out how to get between them. So I'm struggling with that, and I don't really have a tip other than, if you know something, please tip me off, because I'm struggling. But
Yeah.
it's process. We'll get there eventually. I hope someday before I die.
One day.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I've got a lot of intertwined and parallel like POVs and storylines and things, and I part of me wants to just pick a character and write the whole book for that character, but I also know that if I do that, I'm going to have an absolute nightmare editing because my books are linear even though they hop POVs and things like that. So if something happens to one character, it's probably going to affect the next one, and I need to know what's going on. So
Yeah.
and I don't
Makes
plot.
sense.
We know this.
Nope, you
I
don't
don't
plot.
plot. I
We
don't
know
have a
this.
plan. I don't know what I'm doing. Not even a little bit. So I have to go through it in order, or everything's going to get all screwy. And yeah, it's slowing me down a little bit, but that's okay.
You'll get there. I have
Yeah.
faith.
But as world builders, it is essential to keep our creative skills sharp by exploring other realms and stories. Could be books, movies, TV, video games, whatever. And what portals have we been entering the world through? So for me, I've been really busy the last couple of weeks. I haven't been doing a whole lot of media consumption, but I revisited a couple of old favorites. To include Down Periscope and The Hunt for Red October, and yes, they were both in the name of research. So,
Wow, that is some oldies
I
but
know,
goodies.
classic, right? Yeah, for sure. What have you been up to?
I've been reading here and there, but nothing that I want to bring to the table today. But I can tell you, I'm right smack dab in the middle of an Apple TV made for Apple TV series called Severance.
Oh, I've been wanting to watch that
Have you heard
one.
of this?
Yeah.
It chef's kiss. It's fascinating. It's a thriller. It's sort of sci-fi. I wouldn't go all out sci-fi, but it's sci-fi-esque. The two main takeaways that I have is I really do enjoy stories with a steep learning curve. If you don't know what that means that you're diving into a world and there's very little or no explanation about what's going on. You're in a completely different world and nobody's explaining anything to you, and you just have to walk through it till you get there.
Fake it till you make it.
But what I enjoy about that is that how much it makes the storyline feel mysterious about you, all these curiosity seeds, as they say in one of my other podcasts. What does this mean? And what are they doing there? And why are they doing that? And instead of getting frustrated, right, I'm curious. I just want to figure this stuff out. So, which brings me to the second thing that, like a breakthrough or something I learned, and it ties into that. One does not need to explain anything until the time is right.
Correct.
So one of the things that happens when I give some people my books, my chapters or something like that to critique, I want to know what this means. Maybe you should explain what this means. Maybe you should put a little blurb about what this means. No, I do not
You'll
have to.
find out when you find out.
Yeah, this now's not the time to find out. Right now, you're finding out about something else. Let's focus on learning one thing at a time. You don't have to learn all the things in a big barf in the beginning. You'll just be curious. That's great. If you're curious, I did my job.
Yeah. And what's the fun in knowing all the details up front?
Great.
Where's the journey?
Exactly.
Where's the growth? You have to learn things slowly.
Where's the
Exactly.
mystery? Yes.
But there's also a fine
Yeah.
line between I'm writing a, Agatha Christie Murder She Wrote mystery and revealing things slowly.
Yes.
So
There is, and those are different genres. Well, they're not different genres. Agatha Christie mystery is a genre. Weaving mystery into your story doesn't make it a mystery.
correct.
A mystery
Correct.
book. Yeah.
Well, see, my biggest issue with like critiques and things like that, not my specific critique partners at this moment, but I've had this problem before where you give them a piece of a story and they're like, but I need these details and I need to know this. Like you were saying, And it's like, but
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at 5 chapters out of 50.
Yeah, exactly.
It's there.
Exactly. Be
Just
patient.
wait for it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's kind of there's a time and a place to build that tension, and then there's a time and a place to present a question and then answer it quickly. Because
Yes.
sometimes if you try to build the
Mm-hmm.
tension, it will get away. It'll get out of control, and you end up with this weird, clunky hybrid, like mystery thriller thing. I edited a book recently that had
So,
this problem, and I was talking to the author, and she's like, "I don't understand what you mean by this." And I went, "Well, are you writing a murder mystery or an urban fantasy? Which is it?" Because you can't make up your mind. You keep trying to
yeah.
create questions and then let them hang for half the book, and it's not working. Make the question, answer it quickly, and then use that as a plot device to move things forward. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but it's a pretty fine line to ride, I think.
It is fine
And
line.
what I know of
So
Severance, they
I
did
would
it
use.
beautifully.
They did it great. I will say that like for when I was sharing my story, everybody wanted to know more about Black Cat right away, which is an automaton,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that what Black Cat's not the story,
No.
okay? What Black Cat is part of the world and the setting,
Mm-hmm.
and how my primary character, my how Aniksha got Black Cat reveals who she is, but it did not have to be revealed at that moment.
Correct.
Black Cat's a device.
Yes.
It's not the story. So I don't have to explain it right now.
Absolutely. Yep. And I had similar questions with Bearless's familiar Gatir. I had very similar responses to that. I'm like, oh, I need to know more about this mechanic and the familiar and how does it work and like
Hmm.
all of this. And I'm like, no, you don't.
No, you don't need to know that
You don't
right
need to
now.
know that.
That is not the story.
Right.
I'm glad you're
Right.
curious. I'm glad you're fat. I'm glad I piqued your
Right.
interest, but
I'm
that's not the
glad you're enjoying
story.
this character and want more, but that's really not the point. So, yep.
Yes.
I mean, you could always take a card out of my deck and write a little novella or something that focuses much more heavily on Black
More than
Cat.
absolutely when the time
Yeah,
is right.
exactly.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. But what's doing for me is giving me a little more, what's the word, confidence to say, I'm glad you're curious. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
Move on. We'll get there when we
Which,
get there.
yeah. So build the tension, build the mystery, but don't overdo it. Is that a fair takeaway here?
Yep. Yeah. Yes, and also the opposite. Don't spend all the time explaining all the
Correct.
things. If it's not necessary at that particular moment, and that's a very difficult lesson for a lot of writers to learn.
Absolutely. It is very much difficult. Even Tolkien struggled with that. He spent 5 pages explaining one leaf. So
Yeah.
it's
So
too much. Like, as much as we all love Tolkien, don't be Tolkien. Or
don't be
Sanderson.
joking.
Anyways, it is now time for Worldsmith Darlings. Each of us are going to share a few words that paint a vivid picture of another world. It could be a passage from another author that we admire, or one that missed the mark, or something we wrote. Might be snippets we're proud of, or dead darlings that didn't make the final cut. Are you ready?
Yes, and this one doesn't really paint a world, but it does paint a character's
Oh,
attitude.
for sure.
And this is from Ted Lasso.
Yes.
I introduced my husband to Ted Lasso,
So good.
and it is so. It took me over a year to convince him to watch
Oh,
it, but now
oh.
he likes it. And here's the line: Fairy tales do not start, nor do they end in the dark forest.
I love that.
The dark forest. The dark forest is the middle of the story. Yep,
Oh, I love that.
that's a
That is
great
really
line.
great. Okay, so mine's a lot longer, is much less concise, but is one of mine from book 3 for anyone who's curious. And I was doing my best to re-describe a location and a mood, so we'll see how it lands. The giant crystals that provided light to the dwarven capital of Dor-Badir were dimmed, and they appeared to pulse gently with the thunderous beat of drums that echoed in the cavernous underground city. Step by slow, measured step, the funeral procession wound its way through the terraced streets, but there was no crowd of people to watch, and no mourning throng followed behind. Only the few people actually involved in the procession made the long march toward the tombs hidden in the depths of the stone.
Oh yeah, I like it.
I do too, but opinions are helpful.
I just think there a few words could be cut out for more
Probably a few. It's first
specificity.
draft. You know how
Yeah.
I am.
Yep, but no, there's definitely a graphic
Yeah.
there.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, you did
All
good.
right. Cool. I get accused quite often of not describing enough. So,
Step by slow, measured step. I mean, just that right there means that without even reading what's next, this tells me that it's intentional. So there's a reason this is happening at this pace, and then it tells me that there's a funeral happening. So you're introducing me to what's happening just by saying step by slow measured step. Tells me that this is something that is what's the word, ritualistic, or
very deliberate.
maybe even very deliberate. Yeah, that's the word. Yep.
Excuse me. Cool. I'll take it.
There you go.
And now, it's time for the main event and our favorite game, World Builders Roulette. Each week, we place the fate of our worlds in the hands of the D20, letting it choose from our list of wild, speculative, and imaginative scenarios. Which, words are hard. Will this week's roll transform our worlds or inspire an entirely new one? Only the dice know, so let's see where they lead us. All right, are we ready?
Yep.
All right. Number 12. What if currency in your world was based on storytelling, where the most compelling tales held the greatest value?
So the first thing that comes to mind about that is that it's about the story's depth or the compellingness of the story, not the length of the story, right?
Correct.
So it's not a quantifiable or objective number. It's completely subjective. So
That was my first takeaway as well,
yeah.
because not every story is for every person. Some people love Sarah Moss, and I can't stand anything she's ever written. So it leads. So currency typically is a very objective thing. It is agreed upon by society that currency has a certain value. When you start using something subjective like a story as currency, does the value change from person to person? Like, oh, well, that story was okay, so it's worth, 2 loaves of bread, but that other story was really awesome, so it's worth 10 loaves of bread.
Yes, I think it would. It's good, but that's the same thing in our society today, right? Meaning that I want this coffee mug for 50 cents, while that person wants the one that's handmade by an individual and is $25. So it's still a coffee mug,
Yeah.
right? But one is worth more to the other. I actually would prefer the $25 one, not the 50-cent one. But
Agreed.
despite that, I was thinking that isn't all forms of entertainment in our world here today really just it is some form of storytelling,
Yeah.
even if you're bird watching.
Yeah. It's the story of the bird.
It's
You're observing the story of the bird unfold. That makes sense. What bothers me about that analogy, though, is like with the coffee mugs, 50 cents, $25, whatever. you're still exchanging an objective currency for it. And that's the complication. When the story is the currency, how does that exchange work? That exchange rate. If I go to the grocery store and I want milk, eggs, butter, and a box of cookies, and it would be, I don't know, $20. But I walk up to the cash register and I go, hey, I have a better idea. I'm going to tell you a story and then you're going to let me take this stuff home.
Mm-hmm.
If that was an accepted thing, which it's not, but if it was, what if they don't like my story?
Then you don't get to take that stuff home.
Right. So
what if they lie? But what if they lie?
Right. Exactly. See? So how does that function as an objective agreed upon currency? I don't see it working very well unless the story the story had some sort of magic tied to it that made it somehow quantifiable.
Well, wait a minute. So
like, speak your words into this magic device and it'll tell me how much trade you get or something. I don't know. But
yeah, so okay, see something like that. So I will tell stories all day long, and my digicount of money, my tokens increases. I can go spend the tokens on anything I want. I don't have to tell a story to the teller at the, to the client so they buy my stuff. So I have to make up stories that can be consumed by anybody anywhere.
This is basically what we do anyways. All right, carry on.
Yes. Yes.
I type into the void and throw it at the internet and see what sticks.
Yes. How many tokens are you going to get for this story?
Not many.
Not enough.
Not nearly enough. But
well, not enough to pay you the bill.
Not enough to justify my time. Let's be honest. We do this for the love of the game, not for the money.
Yeah.
All right. I digress. Anyways.
But that's the only way I could see something like this working. I could not see it being between the vendor and the consumer. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't. I don't think that would work.
Yeah, and I think this would lead to a ridiculous amount of like microfiction, flash fiction, like really short stories. Mm-hmm. I love microfiction and flash fiction, but there's not a market for it other than the internet. But I love it so much because it takes the skill tree essentially of building a world, building a character, building a plot, building everything, and then shrinks it and distills it down to its absolute core. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, tell me a full story in 3 sentences.
Yep.
That makes me actually stop and think. Tell me a story in 500 words that makes me stop and think, but doesn't leave a million questions. Like, start, middle, and end in 500 words. Good luck. Like, it's very difficult.
I would rephrase that. It's allowed to leave a million questions. It's not allowed to leave a million dangles. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's fair. A difference, right?
That's fair.
But you're right. Start, middle, end.
Yeah. And I find it fascinating. I suck at it, but I find it fascinating.
Oh, I love it. I've done a couple of the micro stories, and it's very it's very intense is the word I want to use.
For sure.
But in this world, what if currency in your world was based on storytelling? I would say that the stories are, I don't know, who would pay for the stories? Nobody. If you're trying to gain tokens, who's giving you the tokens?
Okay, so here's an idea.
It's an interesting thought.
This is going to get weird, just so you're aware. It could be something kind of like crypto, kind of a blockchain sort of thing.
Yep.
Where you can just turn a computer on and tell it, go make me money. With crypto, you can mine for crypto. But what if this was something similar, where instead of mining, you're producing a story, and then that is available to whoever wants it for free.
For free.
For free.
Yes.
But then what
Yes.
comes of it is that you get paid for producing into a pool. So
Hmm.
if you're telling stories and like it's going to the fantasy equivalent of Audible and everybody can just listen to it, and then that you're getting royalties based on, I don't know, freaking ad placement or something, because that's how the world seems to work. But I could see it working, but you're right. Where does that money come from?
Right. So if I tell a
It's just
10 wonderful
yeah.
tales, I have now 10 tokens. Okay, let's just say
Mm-hmm.
it was a 1-to-1 for easy
Right.
math. I can go give my tokens to the bread seller, the baker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what does he do with that token? Does he buy stories?
Can you? Well, you can trade the
No.
token for goods and services,
So I trade the token for goods and
and then
services,
he
and
would
what does
trade
he
it
do
for
with
goods and
it?
services to get his flour
But would one of those
and
services was
herbs
the
and
story,
whatever.
or would the stories always be for free?
I don't know.
And if we consider all types of entertainment as storytelling,
Yeah, you throw in music and art and a lot of other things. I think it would lead to a much more creatively grounded society,
yep.
much more imaginative. Because as a lot of times you tell somebody you're a writer and you write fiction or you write fantasy or whatever. Oh, I don't have an imagination. I couldn't possibly do that. Yeah, you do.
Hmm.
You ever lie to your mom to tell her why you got home late? Yeah, you do.
Yep.
You just have to tap into it and figure out how to use it. And something like this would force people to do that. So I think society as a whole would be better off. But there's also always going to be that subset who takes that skill and twists it around for nefarious purposes.
But what would the nefarious purposes be if everything they needed was provided for except for greed? I don't know.
Greed. Good
I don't.
storytellers make
I
good
don't.
liars.
So, I this is a fascinating concept, and I think that we could come up with some. I mean, there's a couple of good Star Trek episodes that have sort of this
Oh yeah.
concept. But I think that you could build a good world story off of this. I don't. Well, I say I don't want this to be part of my world, but that's not true. One of the positions or careers in my world is a storyteller, and the storyteller's job is to make sure that their village, their town, whatever, has the history
Mm-hmm.
and it is given to the
Mm-hmm.
youngers. So it is a profession, but they're not going to be given more what's the word, compensation based on how compelling the story
Right.
is. They might be given more recognition based on how well they tell the story.
Yeah. But is your village storyteller going to go on a live tour?
No, but there could be. I could bring this on. I could bring this further. Is that you have a village storyteller, you have a county storyteller, you have a,
Mm-hmm.
just move up the
Mm-hmm.
chain until you have the national storyteller, which is basically the what's it called, the library, the national library. What is it?
Library of Congress,
Yes, it's
essentially.
essentially, yeah. So whoever's in charge of the Library of Congress, yes, it's basically their job as they're the storyteller for the nation.
Fair enough. That's a cool idea.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a cool way to
Yeah,
look
I
at it.
miss. No, I don't miss because I never experienced heavily, but I feel like society has lost a lot culturally with the loss of the oral tradition.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it's also starting to come back in a way, not
Hmm.
on a particularly small scale. as far as like personal level, like, go to grandpa's house and listen to stories for hours. But like things like YouTube and podcasts, particularly like the folklore and the history podcasts and things like that, and people that do history stuff on YouTube, depending on who it is, a lot of them have a very storyteller vibe. Um,
Hmm.
and in a way, it's bringing back the oral tradition. The Fat Electrician comes
It
to mind on YouTube. He does a lot of military history, but he does it in a very storytelling way that's just super compelling and fascinating to listen to. And like Wendigoon does folklore and myth and things like that, and conspiracy theories and like the more mysterious stuff, but it's very storytelling style.
hmm
And it's awesome. I love it, and I want to see more of it because we've lost a lot of that. And if people can learn something and enjoy doing it, people are more likely to learn something. So I want more. But
I hear
yeah.
you. I also find it on a tangent, sort of aligned with this. I find it fascinating that oral storytelling turned into written storytelling, which is turned into visual
Hmm.
storytelling, which will become holographic, interactive storytelling more than just you know um, RTBG, RT. What you know what I mean? RPG.
Yeah.
Um, and where's it going to go from there? But I don't think that any one of those should be let go with the bringing on of
Oh,
another
I
one. I think
absolutely
it should
agree.
just be another way to
I
tell a story.
absolutely agree. And like going into the whole holographic interactive thing, you have the classic idea of the holodeck from Star Trek,
Hmm.
which is, a 3D world that you can interact in, but it's just an empty room. So on a like similar we're getting there sort of note, have you seen the behind the scenes stuff for a lot of the Star Wars TV shows where they
No.
use a thing called the volume? It is a fully enclosed space and all the walls are screens. So like the Mandalorian, they shot that whole thing on a soundstage and all those open vistas are in the volume where like the desert or whatever is projected onto the wall, and then they have set dressing in front of it, and it moves with the character, and they can change things and like zoom in and zoom out and change the time of day and do all sorts of crazy stuff, and it's fascinating. It's like step one toward holodeck, and I'm like, please, yes, more, please, I want a holodeck.
What's interesting about that for me is the talent that it takes for an actor to pull that off.
Oh, and they do it so well.
Yeah, I mean you have to
Yeah, they used
have.
it for Mandalorian. They used it for
Hmm.
Andor, Acolyte. They've been using it for a ton of stuff. And then you have something like the quote unquote live action Lion King, where the whole thing was made and shot inside a video game engine. Like their camera guys are walking around in a warehouse with VR headsets on, and what they move is what the camera does, and they're shooting it just like a normal thing, but it's all in a computer, and it's fascinating to see the behind the scenes of how it works because that's where tech is going, and you can do some amazing stuff with it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Where storytelling is going, and back to your point, doesn't mean we need to lose any of the former ways of
Mm-mm.
doing it, and they all
Yeah,
have.
absolutely,
Uh, yeah,
absolutely. All right, well that was fun.
that was fun.
So before we close out completely, I have a quick announcement to make regarding the show. All episodes, both past and future, are now and will be, given whichever it is, available on YouTube in a couple of different places. My channel, which is at dhall author, and a new channel just for the podcast, which can be found at What If South Is Up, over on the Yub
Nice, good
Tubs.
job.
So they automatically populate. So once it publishes elsewhere, it will show up there as well, and it is an audio podcast still. It is, but it's parsed out so you can get to it through like YouTube Music, podcasts, that sort of thing. Watch it on your TV if you want. But
Nice
yep, it's
job. Good
there. It's
job.
available. It's working. take a look at that. You can look at our big, beautiful cover art. However you choose to look at our big, beautiful cover art and hang out with us for a while. So that's an update, and it's fun. But are you a world builder crafting your first universe, or a seasoned creator with realms under your belt? Whether you be a D&D game master, writer, author, or simply a storyteller, which we love storytellers, we would love for all the worldsmiths to join us on the What If South is Up podcast. Reach out on our Facebook page or to send us your pitch. We would be honored to make your world the star of an episode, or maybe even a dozen. We would love your help too. Our What If list is always open for new imaginative scenarios. If you've got a unique twist or world-shaking idea, send it our way, and we'll give you full credit. After all, who doesn't want a free plug? Visit our Facebook page or drop us a line at whysouthisUp@gmail.com, and we can't wait to see what you dream up. So, Xtina, where are you on the interwebs?
uniquelyxtina.com. Yay, that's the web. And then I tend to go visit the Tiki-Taki app and Facebook, both Uniquely Xtina. And you?
My website is DerekHallAuthor.com, which is temporarily down for a redesign and update. But you can also find me as D Hall Author just about anywhere, including, as mentioned, YouTube. So, yeah, I think that's about it.
We did it.
We did a thing.
We did it again. We did it again.
Oops, I did it again.
Did it again. I knew that.
Yeah, I do that all the
I knew it. You weirdo.
I know.